Everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. Hope my signal is good. Invite some people to come into this discussion tonight. I think it's going to help you. I think this is also one that you might want to get something to write with. I know this is a little later than normal, but I got to do it when I feel it. You might want to get something to write with. How's everybody doing? Thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in. Let me know if my signal is good before I start. Let me know if my signal is good before I start. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for coming in. Where are you all coming in from? It's great. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Here's somebody talking outside my house, talking mighty loud. Let's look at something tonight. I want to talk about formatting, formatting new habits for developing relationships. Formatting new habits for developing relationships. Why are relationships so important? It's because all things being equal, you're going to be developing relationships on some level for the rest of your life, be it professional, be it romantic. On some level, all things being equal, you're going to develop relationships for the rest of your life. Another reason why I'm dealing with this is because most of the problems, the trauma that many are experiencing is due to the fact that no one really taught you good relational skills, not only skills in terms of managing a relationship, but even the skills of developing a relationship. And what I've come to learn is that everything, really mostly everything about our lives is the product of our own personal habits. Even those toxic people that have moved in and out of our lives and have done damage one after the other, after the other, after the other. Well, how did those people get access to our hearts and to our lives? It boils down in most cases to a set of habits that we consistently employ in terms of how we approach relationships, and these habits produce the same consistent results. We don't always look at it like that. We don't always look at the fact that the last 5 relationships we had could have very well been the product of poor relational skills and self-sabotaging relational habits in terms of the developing aspects of the relationship. So I'm a firm believer that if you're consistently getting what you don't want from life, you can't continue to look out at everything and everybody else. There's something that needs to change in you, because if the world keeps getting in, tearing your life up, there's something you need to change about your own safeguards, your own approach, your own accessibility. There are some habits that all of us have employed in terms of developing these relationships that have to be addressed. And so I want to kind of look at that tonight, because you continue to get the same relationship outcomes because your approach is consistent. You continue to get the same relationship outcomes because your approach is consistent. You see, everybody has, all of us have relationship goals, but what are goals with conflicting habits? Everybody has relationship goals, but what are goals if the habits we employ are in conflict with the goals we say we have? Well, let me show you what I mean by that. I'm glad you asked. You say, okay, I want a husband, but yet the world has taught you to dress like, and I'm not going to say it, I think these are really conversations that women should have with one another. You say you want a husband, but when you go out into the world, if somebody were to, the first impression a person will have of you is your dress code. If a person is looking at your dress code, does your dress code say wife? But see, that's what the world has taught you. And so you have developed this habit of dressing this way. It's not even reflective of your real personality or character, but the world taught you that this is the way you catch a man. And so while your goal is husband, your habit is conflicting with your goal, and you're wondering, why am I not attaining my goal? It's because you have some contradictory habits that are the product of your own broken consciousness. And I hope I'm saying that in a way that you understand that I'm not judging you and I'm not downing you. I'm just trying to speak truth to you for you to really process and think, because I see you all the time. You dressed a certain way and the world sees you, and the world thinks one thing. Everybody's not intentionally looking beneath the surface of your life like people like me do. Most people are taking you for face value. And then I sit down and I have a conversation with you when I was able to travel in these conferences and what have you. And I see you, the way you're presenting yourself. And then I talk to you and I realize that your presentation does not reflect your character or your personality at all. And then I realize that, your presentation is the product of broken consciousness. And you along the way have developed some poor habits relative to developing relationships that's consistently attracting what you don't want. It happens all the time. And of course the reverse could, we could make cases for how men do the same thing. But so everybody has relationship goals, but what are the goals if the habits are in conflict? Is that making sense to you? You see, because when we start talking about a habit, you have to understand this. Your habits are generally, our habits are generally a behavior that we consistently do without having to be coached or coerced. And our habits produce consistent results, be it negative or positive. Like when you think about most of the health challenges that Americans have, or let me get even more specific, we as African Americans have, clearly I'm included, are the result of dietary habits that if we shifted the habits, we could change the outcomes relative to blood work and to health conditions. But these are things that are what ingrained in us that we find ourselves doing without even thought, without even thinking. This is what I mean when I talk about developing or formatting new habits, where you get to a place where this thing is functioning on automatic pilot to your good. Like these negative habits are on automatic pilot and working to your dismay. This is what when you look at Proverbs 23:7, it says, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he." In other words, there's a dimension of thought that goes further than or goes deeper than the conscious mind. Now, the mental health professionals, the psychologists would call it the subconscious mind. People like me, the preachers and the religious and the spiritual people would call it the spirit. You see, as a man thinketh in his spirit, wait, what he really believes in that part of him that is moving and acting without him even being aware. If once he really believes something there, as he thinks in his heart, so is he. I put something on Twitter today. I can't recall the exact verbiage, but it went something similar to this. It's amazing how swiftly life aligns when we really believe something in our hearts. When we're convinced of something in our hearts, it's amazing how fast life aligns itself with the fruit of that consciousness. And so the aim is to not just get you to, you know, work hard to try to think on a different level consciously. The aim is to continue to pound certain things in, continue to pound certain things in until those things are cemented in your subconscious, in your spirit, to a point that you're functioning on that level without any conscious thought. That when somebody approaches you that's, whose behavior is beneath you, who's not good for you, that it won't even have to be an issue. Subconsciously, your habits will cause you to elude and avoid that and move around that because your spirit man is aware that here lies a situation that does not fit me. Now, relationship habits, and I'll say it again, you keep getting the kind of situationships you keep getting because there's some habits that you've not recognized. You keep getting the kind of situationships you keep getting because there are some habits you've not recognized. How does a person have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 babies out of wedlock? And I'm not just talking about females. How does a man do that? And then, cries broke. There's something that, is in distress about it, but you got one baby after another by different women. And then you want to tie my time up talking about, well, why is that? There are some paradigms, there's some things that are at work beneath the surface that are working against you. Proverbs 23:7 was the scripture, yes. Relationship habits are based in paradigms. Now, what is a paradigm? A paradigm is a way of thinking. Invite some people to come in here tonight. I know it's late, but call somebody, text somebody, tell them they need to tune into this. This is some stuff that's going to help you. Now, you may need to get something to write with. A paradigm is a way of thinking that is unconscious or consciously governing our lives. Sometimes you realize that this area of your life is being governed by a certain thought process, but in most cases, paradigms are governing our lives even when we're not aware. What do you think soul ties? If you move away from the spiritual aspects of what a soul tie is and the demonic powers behind soul ties are also caught up in paradigms. The certain behaviors, certain events create a certain way of thinking that governs your life beneath the surface, and you find yourself constantly drifting in a certain direction even when you don't want to go in that direction. Your life is being governed by a paradigm. Paradigm is a way of thinking that is unconsciously or consciously governing our lives. You see, This is what was going on with me in my life when I was struggling with all of that, sexual behavior that wasn't aligning with the Bible or my beliefs or my relationship with God or even who I knew I was. I knew I was never that guy. I was behaving that way, but I was never that guy. I had been conditioned and trained, which I'm getting ready to get into how paradigms are formed, but I was conditioned and there were paradigms that were driving me. And when I woke up one day and got delivered and my mindset shifted, I was transformed by the renewing of my mind. There was a new set of paradigms that took over my conscious and subconscious mind. And I intentionally renewed my mind to get the controls or to get the connections to the old paradigms broken off of my soul. And so now you see a man that is whole sitting before you, spirit, soul, and body. What I present is who I am in my mind, is who I am in my spirit. There's this consistency from all levels of my being. But most people can't say that because on a certain level, they desire this and they know this is who they really are. But on another level, there are paradigms or thought systems that are conflicting with what they desire and who they know they really are. And it's because they've never taken the time to renew the mind and to bring the soul and the spirit and the body into oneness. I'm not better than anybody. I was reading some of my emails, well, DMs actually, and certain podcasters invited me to come on to what is usually a secular platform to talk about, is there really hope for a woman to have a man that would be faithful to her? And of course, my testimony is yes, because I've been at both extremes. If God can deliver me and make me an upstanding man and a faithful husband to my wife, and I can say that boldly because they ain't got nobody out here that it ain't got nobody out here know nothing about me. It ain't nobody can call and say, well, yeah, I did this. Not without a massive lawsuit. Because I've been at both extremes. And so my answer is yes. It can happen. But we got to get the brothers, like we got to get the sisters, to a place where the mind is renewed. But until we renew that mind, we're going to always struggle with this conflict in our being. This is it's like this war going on within us. Okay, let me get into it. I'm just rambling like an old Baptist preacher. Paradigms are formed through, I listed 5 things here, and I'm certain that there are more. Therapists, psychologists, counselors, I'm none of those. I'm just a preacher and a man. They can probably go deeper with this. Paradigms are formed through training. Many of you were trained either directly or indirectly to make the relational moves that you make consistently. The way you handle men is either the way you saw your mama do it, the way you saw your sisters and them do it, your aunts, your girlfriends, and you never stop to ask yourself, now what is the fruit of their behavior? If you look at most of them, if not all of them, none of them really got a man. Even if they got a man at the house, they ain't really got him because he's a community man. He's a community man. None of them really have a sound, solid, real relationship, but yet you were trained to embrace relationships by your community. Even if your community was flunking at relationships, I was trained by my community to be a little, male whore. I've been trying to find a nice way of saying it. Y'all don't relate to the whoremonger thing. That's like old King James type stuff. Yeah, just a little male whore. I was trained to be that. My community trained me to be that. My community said, you the man if you do it like this. So paradigms are created through training. The way you were trained as a child, the example you saw, between your mama and your daddy. If your daddy was, a weak man, that was training something if you in you. If your mama was dominant, or if your mama, accepted physical abuse, all of that was training paradigms in you, thought systems that would live beneath the surface of your life and would dictate or govern the quality of your decisions moving forward. That's why the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he won't depart from it. Whatever you put in them, that thing becomes a paradigm, a thought system that lives in them, be it right or wrong. They will always revert back to that default. Your training is your default. Your training is your default. The second thing that produces paradigms is trauma. When you've had a traumatic event, abuse, abandonment, disrespect, embarrassment, something traumatic, the trauma leaves an impression on your soul, and it reconfigures your soul. It reconfigures what you believe is possible for you. Trauma will reconfigure what you believe about you, what you believe you're worth. Trauma will reconfigure what you think you should settle for or not. So paradigms are formed through training, trauma, and I kind of alluded to this one within the framework of training, social conditioning. You mess around, you have, okay, there it is. You've been raised right. You've been raised in a home where you had a great example of a husband and a wife, a mother and a father. You were trained properly. You were taught the word, the Bible. You were given great morals and ethics. But then you go off to college, and you get hooked up with whoever you get hooked up with, and now they recondition you to accept some other kind of way of living and thinking, to the point now you've abandoned your whole foundation. That's happening with our young people all over the world in colleges. Not only with our young people, it's happening with some older people. You get hooked up with your little, band of toxic, your little toxic sisterhood, and now all of a sudden they got all of these opinions and they got all of this stuff they pumping into your head, and you got a good man at home, and now these women that don't they ain't got nobody. They got you going home acting crazy with your man. That's what social conditioning. Now you got these. Your association is bringing on assimilation. You're developing these undercurrents of thought, these paradigms that you don't even realize are there until it's disrupted your life and disrupted your relationship. The fourth thing that I put are genetics. Now, we don't like to talk about that, but sometimes people think on a certain level because of genetics. And genetics plays a bigger role in a lot of things than we realize. And then number 5 is intentional transformation. Number 5 is when you really get into an awareness of the fact that I'm making bad relational choices or otherwise, and there are some habits that I have that I need to address. And now you've taken the time to really peruse your own heart, your own soul. And so now you're beginning to see, okay, this is not working for me. Okay, that's not working for me. This doesn't serve me. That doesn't serve me. This doesn't represent me. That doesn't. Now you're taking the time to really know yourself, and now you move into intentional transformation. This is where and when you begin to address your own thought system, and you begin to do like I did. You begin to bring a synergy between your spirit, your soul, and your body, and you become one. It's called intentional transformation. That's what we're working on here. That's what I do every time you see me. I am intentionally trying to put the mirror of transformation before you so that you can see yourself and then you can make the necessary corrections to your own consciousness that will align with who God says you are and who you know you are. And then you can begin to get the results that you've been. Okay, listen to what the Bible says in Romans 7:15. Then I'll get into my points and then I'm done. Romans 7:15 says, "For I do not understand my own actions." This is the Amplified version. He says, "I am baffled and bewildered by them. I do not practice what I want to do, but I am doing the very thing I hate and yielding to my human nature, my worldliness, my sinful capacity." What is he describing there? He's describing the fact that his life is being driven almost like by a puppet master. And he's saying, I keep getting results I don't want. What is this? Paradigms, thought systems that are riding beneath the surface of your life and steering your life in the directions you don't want to go in. So this is true in relationships. We have paradigms that create relationship habits or the developing or habits within the development of relationships that consistently produce the outcomes we don't desire. So now let's jump into these some thoughts relative to new relational habits. Number one, something for you to think about. You cannot know who relates to you before you stop to really know who you are. Pause. A relationship is based on the capacity for the two to relate to one another. How can you know? How can you ever know who relates to you when you, my dear sister, my dear brother, you've never taken the time to really know who you are? You are still judging yourself or presenting yourself from the perspective of what they said you are, or from the perspective of what your history says about you, the labels that society has put upon you. You have never taken the time to know who you are. That's habit number one. I have to understand this. I cannot relate to others, nor can I know who relates to me until I know who I am. This is why I'm not just telling you all that a lot of y'all need to just chill on the relationship stuff. You married. Well, you got to ask yourself, yes, I am married. You got to ask yourself, do you want a marriage or do you just want a wedding? The reason I'm married is because I knew who I was, she knew who she was, and we came together because we knew that we related. You don't just want the optics. You don't just want to be able to take the pictures. You want to be able to have the real thing. Well, you'll never have that until you break this habit of running behind people when you don't really know who you are. You got to get out of the bed. You got to stop having all this sex. You got to get out of the bed. You need to spend some time alone, you and God. Most of y'all can't. I don't know my purpose. How can you know your purpose when your life is constantly preoccupied with people that God never gave you? And you're up in the middle of a bed and ain't no wedding ring nowhere around the nightstand. How can you know your purpose? You don't even know you. You don't get purpose before you have identity. You got to know who you are. You can't know who relates to you before you stop to really know who you are. You got to break that habit of rushing off into relationships. And this bad counsel, this horrible counsel that I hear older, ignorant women give to younger women is just ridiculous. The way to get over, I've heard women say it, the way to get over an old man is to get under a new one. That's the most ignorant, most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. And y'all don't hear me use the term stupid too often, but that is the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. So you gonna get over one soul tie by creating another one? No, babe. You get over the soul tie by locking in with God and yourself, coming into a place of clarity relative to who you are, knowing who you are. And what does that entail? Knowing yourself involves knowing what you need. Have you even stopped to think about what do I need? Knowing what you want, knowing where you're going, and knowing what your stand-alone worth is. See, if you don't know what your stand-alone worth is, what do I mean by stand-alone? Apart from a relationship, apart from a status that says in a relationship. When you're able to be single and you still know your worth and you don't allow the world or anybody else to tamper with your worth because your worth is determined from within you. Now you really know who you are. If you still around here, you got to have a man in the bed. You got to have a man to go to the wedding with for you to feel like you got to take the Instagram pictures for you to feel like you don't know who you are, sweetheart. You need to just sit your little self down because you just as confused as you can be. And you are nothing but you just like a sitting duck. So you need to pause on this rushing into relationships when you don't even know who you are. Jeremiah 17:9 and 10, he says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? He says, I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings. He says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, the Lord, search the heart. You have to have a come to Jesus meeting to even begin to know yourself. Because there's so much contradiction within us. It takes the light of God's presence to really reveal ourselves to us and to give us clarity relative to who we are, where we're going, what we need, and even what we should want. Now, you need a few things. Jot these down under point number 1. Letter A, point number 1 is you can't know who relates to you before you stop to really know who you are. Letter A, you need a revelation of your trauma. See, there are a lot of you who have taken your trauma and you've swept it under the rug to the point that you don't have any conscious recollection of the things that you've gone through, yet these things are steering your life subconsciously on a daily basis. You need a revelation of your own trauma. When you get a revelation of your own trauma, you're going to understand yourself a lot better. I was sharing with you all some years ago, I was on a stage teaching a father-daughter talk meeting. And I was just kind of going over my life, and I had never seen it from this perspective, that my stint with promiscuity started when I was a very young child, with older women that sexualized me. Well, society taught me that I was the man, but I was on that stage that night and I was teaching, and it was like the Holy Spirit just gave me a revelation of my own trauma. He said, you were sexually abused. You didn't go down a path of perversion, just because you were just a bad guy. You were actually sexually abused. And when I got that revelation on that stage in a public setting, it's like it opened up my understanding about so many things concerning me. Why? You need a revelation of your own trauma. You can't get that jumping from one bed to the next or from one relationship to another. You got to know who relates to you. You can't know who relates to you before you stop to really know who you are. Letter B, you need an assessment of your needs. You need an assessment of your needs. And can I tell you, there's a vast difference between what you want and what you need. See, your wants are really being stimulated out of your brokenness. When we get you some real clarity, now you're going to really begin to see what you need. And it's going to be like the difference between ice cream and Brussels sprouts. See, when you walk into a restaurant and you see somebody ordering Brussels sprouts, you understand that there's a consciousness relative to what is needed. When you see somebody sitting over there eating bowls of ice cream, you understand that that's a person that's driven by brokenness. There's a broken consciousness. They don't have an assessment of their needs yet. Maybe they've not suffered enough yet. Then letter C, you need to understand your purpose or the purpose of your life. Letter D, you need to know, all of this is in knowing you now. You need to know what are your non-negotiables. Some of you all have never thought about that. That's why people just step into your life and just use you like a welcome mat. It's because you don't know what your own non-negotiables are. And people gonna treat you the way you treat yourself. We teach people how to treat us, but by the respect we have for ourselves. We tell people how far to go or not to go. If you haven't sat down long enough to know what your non-negotiables are, you will always be a woman sitting around and talking about, you do it again, you do it again. You've been saying you do it again for 10 years. Every weekend you say that. For 10 years you've been saying that because you've never identified your non-negotiables. So you settle for whatever treatment they give you, and now they know enough about you to know you ain't going nowhere. All you're going to do is run your mouth and cry, and you're going to still be in place because you don't really know who you are. And then letter E, you got to know, all of this is in knowing who you are. You need to know what you have to offer. See, when you know what you have to offer, then you develop a boldness and a confidence. And you're not going to then cast your pearls to swine. All right, number 2. So number 1, we said you can't know who relates to you before you stop to really know who you are. Number 2, in developing, these new habits in terms of relationships, you got to make your expectations known. You got to make your expectations known. You know how many times as a pastor, I've been in counseling sessions, and couple been together for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, sometimes more, and now she talking about she want to be married, and we get in the middle of the session, and dude says, "Well, Pastor, she never told me she wanted to be married. I ain't never wanted to be married. She ain't never asked me about no marriage. She ain't never told me she wanted to be married. She said she was feeling me, I was feeling her. And here it is 7, 8 years later." Well, why would you develop a relationship with somebody and not make your expectations known? People need to know what your expectations are before you make the investment. You got to stop being so desperate for a relationship or the semblance of a relationship that you avoid certain subjects, putting it off for a later date because you don't want to run somebody off. Babe, let me tell you something. Anybody you can run off needs to be run off. If you're putting your expectations out there where you plan on going in life, what you ultimately hope to accomplish in a relationship, you're putting that out there. If that's going to run somebody off, they need to be run off. You're not supposed to waste up 6, 7, 8, 9 months of your life, a year of your life, all up in the bed, servicing this individual sexually, doing everything a wife does, and you never put on the table, I want to be a wife. I'm not a girlfriend. I'm a wife. That's a bad habit of constantly going into relationships without communicating your expectations. Matthew 5:37 be yes, yes, or no, no. Affirm yes or no. Anything more than that comes from the evil one. In other words, speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if you're speaking your truth to a person runs them off, they were never enough for you in the beginning. But you got to stop giving all of this time, and then it's like 2, 3 years later. Now you come into my, well, when we gonna get married? Well, I don't want to be married. You ain't tell me that in the beginning. Well, you ain't tell me you wanted to be married in the beginning. Do not give your life to a person who is clear about not wanting to eventually get married if you know you want to be married. Once it's clear they don't want what you want, move them to the friend zone or move them off the table altogether. But don't go and consummate the relationship all up in the bed, having all this sex and everything, creating all of this emotional attachment and giving all of your time and your years and your money to this. And then, a decade later, now you talking about everybody married but me. And now finally y'all having a conversation, do say, I ain't never want to be married. What can you say to that? You never made your expectations known. It has to be a habit of yours that moving forward, once somebody communicates interest in you on any level, and then it picks up a little bit, that now it's time for us to have a conversation about future. What are my expectations? Well, I just need you to know I'm not looking to have no lifetime boyfriend. I'm trying to be married. I need a husband. I'm not looking to be out here provide no husband benefits to no boyfriends. My husband is gonna get the best of me, and make that known. And dude can either, say, rock with you, roll with you, kick rocks. But you have to what? Make your expectations known. All right. Time is running. Number 3. Now listen to this one here very good now. Listen to this one very, very, very good. Very good. Attract with the eyes. This is number 3 now. Attract with the eyes, but proceed with the brain. Attract with the eyes. You like what you see. You like what you see. The Lord is my shepherd. I see what I want. Yeah, I understand all that. But when your eyes get through bucking and you see what you want, allow your brain to take over. You have to approach cerebrally and spiritually after the initial sexual attraction. The last thing you want to continue to do, like a lot of you have done, is to let that sexual attraction just drive you and drive you and drive you and drive you all the way to the bed and drive you into soul time. And that man know exactly what to do to get you just like somebody on crack cocaine. And then finally, after you've been drunk all the way down there, now you come to your senses and you realize, well, you have to start developing the habit. I'm attracted with my eyes, but I'm proceeding with my brain and my spirit. I'm not going to let my eyes dictate. Soon as my eyes see what they want and what it look like I want, looking back and look like it want me, now I'm allowing my brain to take over the negotiation, and I'm allowing my spirit to do the investigation. Well, that's good right there. The brain does the negotiation and the spirit does the investigation. So even if the brain, oh man, that's good right there. Somebody write that down for me. You have to approach cerebrally. You got to make decisions about relationships with your brain and your spirit, not your eyes. That's why I get tired of y'all telling me about my type, my type. All you talking about is what you looking at. And every man that you done had that done wrecked your bank account, broke your heart, left you with babies they won't pay for, were dudes that they were your type. You liked the way they looked. You never involved your brain or your spirit in the process. That's why I don't hear nothing about your type. I don't hear nothing about your type because your type don't work. You need to listen to somebody else. Oh, Lord, I feel like I'm fussing here now. Listen to what the Bible says in Proverbs 4:25-27. He says, let thine eyes look right on, and let thine eyelids look straight before thee. Look what he says in verse 26, though. Ponder the path of thy feet. Think about it. You looking a whole lot, but now ponder the path of your feet. Think about the move you're getting ready to make. And let all thy ways be established. Don't make a foolish move looking and everything. He says, think about what you're getting ready to do. Think about the move you're getting ready to make. And verse 27 says, turn not to the right hand nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. You start seeing something that ain't right. He says, use your brain, use your spirit. Get up out of that quick. You know, see, here's an illustration for you. When you follow the attraction of the eyes and you never involve the brain, you never involve the spirit. Have you ever, gone to a new restaurant because it looked good, and maybe even when you got up to it, maybe something smelled good, and then when you actually looked at the menu, you realized there was nothing there for you. Doesn't matter what it looks like, doesn't matter what it smells like, you got to always read the menu. See, if you just going by, if you constantly going by looks and you never proceed with the brain and the spirit, you're going off of the aroma. You're going off of the ambiance. But the reality is, if you took the time to read the actual menu, you would know that this restaurant is not serving anything that I actually need or want. That's why you've had all of these messed up situations. Most of y'all have been conditioned habitually not to be attracted to a good man. No, don't tell me that ain't no good men. There's a whole lot of good men that need a good woman, want a good woman, but the world has trained you and traumatized you to a point that all you want are men that are going to traumatize you. You rolling with this. You a PhD woman manipulated by a GED man because you rolling with this here. Even the GED man using his little brain on you while you still stuck with your looks. He's slick. He using his brains on you to manipulate you because you're not pondering the path of your feet. So you got to track number 3, track with the eyes, but proceed with the brain. I can't believe I've been on here an hour already. Okay, okay, that was number 3. Yeah, that was number 3. Number 4, pull the trigger sooner than later. Pull the trigger. These are habits you got to break. See, everything you can reverse everything I'm telling you. Pull the trigger sooner than later. What is the typical habit? Pulling the trigger later than sooner. The moment you wake up and the Holy Spirit says, knock, knock, who's there? A demon spirit. Move on out of this situation. See, the moment you hear that, And the moment your brain analyzes this thing, you look around, you say, oh man, this ain't working here. You got to pull the trigger sooner than later. You're not supposed to hang around another 3-4 years with a situation until it get physical. Now all of a sudden you realize that you got to pull the trigger and you can wait. Pull the trigger sooner than later. If you realize on the first date that it ain't clicking, it ain't here, don't have a second date. You don't owe nobody no second date. Pull the trigger, pull the trigger. I'm about to do a rap here now. Pull the trigger sooner than later. You're wasting too much time hoping and a wishing and thinking you can fix somebody and change somebody. What makes you think you can change somebody and you can't change yourself? What makes you think you can fix a man and you can't fix yourself? Pull the trigger sooner than later. Stop hanging around. You can't wish a connection to be. It either is or it ain't. You cannot wish a connection to be. It either is or it's not. Like I put something on Instagram today. Somebody tell you they don't want you. You don't need to, well, Pastor, what you think that mean? Okay, let's see something here. What they tell you? What they tell you? He told me he don't want me. And you won't know what that means? Okay, I'm going to tell you what that means. He don't want you. You know what that means? You need to kick rocks and move on down the road, because at best, the best case scenario is that he's being honest with you, which speaks highly of his character to some extent, I suppose. The worst case scenario is that he's telling you he don't want you because he knows that you're not going to settle for that, and he's just going to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into a soul tie relationship. You got to learn to pull the trigger sooner than later. Somebody tell you they don't want you, you don't need no explanation. You just need your suitcase and get your stuff and get to moving. The closure is in the words. I don't want you. That's all the closure you need. You don't need no explanation. You don't need no investigation. You just need a new address where they ain't. You got to learn to pull the trigger sooner than later. Like some of these overly religious folk in these churches got these women in these physically abusive relationships, and they talking about hang on in there, pray your way through. And a lot of these women get killed. A lot of these women get, beat up to the point that they never will be psychologically the same, because some stupid person in the church with some old religious stuff there telling them about hang on in there, pray your way through. Pull the trigger sooner than later. And the Bible says in 2 Corinthians 6:14-17, be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion hath light with dark? Y'all ain't got nothing, ain't nothing there. What concord hath Christ with Belial or the devil? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel, a believer with an unbeliever? And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God, as God hath said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them and be separate, saith the Lord. Touch not the unclean thing, and I'll receive you. When you pull the trigger, then God's going to step in. All right, let me just run through these, and then I'm out. Number 4, not going to elaborate. Check your ego. You got to stop making these relational decisions. Is this number 4 or number 5? I think this is number 5, actually. Number 5, check your ego. You got to stop making these relational decisions out of your ego. See, I made a statement the other day. I forget where I made it. It's really not a soulmate that a lot of you, most of you, it's not a soulmate you're looking for. You're looking for an ego mate. That's why he got to be I want him to be 6'2", and I want him to be 220, 8% body fat, and I want him to make $250,000 a year, and I want him to all this kind of stuff here. See, that's ego. Ego stands for what? Edging God out. Whenever you edge God out, you let the devil in. You got to stop making your relational decisions and choices out of your ego. You got to stop it. You keep on doing it. You always got a yeah, but. A lot of y'all have missed a lot of great men because your ego got in the way. A lot of y'all missed a lot of great women because your ego got in the way. You wanted an ego trip. Number 6, you got to know your exit strategy. You should never go into something as, serious and intricate as a relationship, especially if it begins to move and look like it's going somewhere. Initially, you got to know what your exit strategy is. Until this person is proven, you got to know what your exit strategy is. That's how you get caught up in situations with people that don't have it all together, if y'all know what I mean. You got something loose up there. And then you get, these kinds of people have a strange way of positioning you. Hope my mic wasn't messing up. They have a way of positioning you where they trap you and you don't know how to get out. You have to know what your exit strategy is while you're in the phases of trying to figure out if this person is really a fit for your life. Number one, when you start seeing a person become too pushy and too controlling and too manipulative, you just need to get out. Whenever you start, when you find a person that y'all just started talking and, they calling you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times a day, want to know everything about where you at, who with you. Put me on, what is it, the video thing where you talk on the phone and all of that, FaceTime. Oh, let me see. No. People popping in on you. Red flags. You gotta know your exit strategy. Know your exit strategy. The biggest exit strategy you should have is truth. Sometimes you gotta be able to speak your truth early on. Don't mislead folk to think that it's more than it is. So you can always be honest about your position. Don't let a person take and try to define the relationship as something before you really ready to go there. They all on the social media talking about in a relationship, and then you call them asking, now who you in a relationship with? You no, you ain't no relationship with me. We trying to figure this out. You can't just let stuff ride though. You got to always keep your exit strategy, because the last thing you want is to be locked into a situation with somebody who don't have it, who don't have it all. I'm telling you, you got to keep an exit strategy, because some of you all can testify in here that you've been in situations with people who've been so manipulative, they took and positioned you to a place where you didn't know what to do. You didn't, you didn't want them, and you didn't know how to tell them. You didn't know how to get out. They gave you enough that you realized that they ain't have it all. So you got to know your exit strategy. Don't ever go in a situation like that without an exit strategy, especially as a woman. Especially as a woman. All right, number 7, never date on an island. Never date on an island. See, because toxic people have a strange way of pulling you away from your friends, your family, your church, your leaders, your support system, and they want to pull you to this island. They want you to date on an island. You got to break that habit of locking the people that love you out of your love life. You see, because you see you so the reason you lock your mama and them out of it is because you know your mama and them gonna tell you the truth, and you already know that your mama and them not gonna approve of this situation, and so you rather go and date on this island until you realize that you locked out here on this island with Freddy Krueger. But the only way you'll support you is that you got to stop going out here on these islands. And then once you realize that you got a situation that you can't handle, now you back over here begging us to come and fight you out of this, fight you out of this situation. Stop dating on an island. And then number 7, always date with real boundaries. As you begin to develop your relationships, always date with real boundaries. You know, no woman should have a man first date picking you up at your house. Ain't no man supposed to know where you live at. You don't know this man. Man not supposed to know where you live at on no first date. You supposed to be meeting this dude in a public space for a few dates, really. He ain't supposed to be, man ain't supposed to be knowing where you live at. You just met a man. He inviting you to his house. What are you going to this man's house for? You don't know this man. You haven't even done a background check on this man, and you gonna go up to this man's house. You got to get some very real boundaries. You got to get some, because a lot of you on here right now can testify, because you did not have boundaries, you let this devil into your life. I was watching, and it's funny, but it's really not funny. I was watching a video on social media where a man, a young dude, was teaching other men how to go to spend the night at a woman's house and never leave. Did you hear what I said? How to go spend the night at a woman's house and never leave. And he was teaching other men, other bums, how to come to a woman's house and move in without her permission. You got to have some very real boundaries. Don't allow anybody to turn the friend zone into a love connection, to guilt you into a situation. You got to have very real boundaries. I think the first boundary is, of course, that space and understanding, where your private space is versus public space. Then I think the next boundary is a clear definition of where we're at. We are just friends. We are just friends. We are just friends. Well, are you interested? Well, we're just friends. I'm just trying to see. But we are just friends. You got to keep those boundaries. Always date with real boundaries. And then it's as you get to know a person and the person proves him or herself to you that you can begin to relax those boundaries. And you can begin to open. But you can't, So I hope y'all got something out of this. I wanted to just talk to you tonight. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to you some more this week. And I've been thinking about you and been wanting to share some things with you that have been on my heart. And this happens to be one of those subjects. Let me pray for you. Father, I thank you tonight for just the truth. I thank you, God, that you've given us all things that pertain unto life and godliness. And now, God, we thank you for empowering us to be able to live our best lives, even in the area of relationships. God, we thank you for forgiving us for all of the mistakes and blunders we've made. And we dismiss the spirit of guilt and shame. And God, we receive the wisdom and the lessons from everything we've gone through. And now, Father, my prayer is for every person that's watching this, that you will bring a peace and a calm to their hearts and give them that clarity. In Jesus' name. Well, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I really, really, really appreciate you all. Don't forget to go by my website, rcblakes.com. Sign up for my mailing list. Sign up for my mailing list at rcblakes.com. Don't forget to go by and look into my online programs, Transcending the Father Wound, Soul Ties, Wisdom for Women in Ministry, Queenology 2.0, the training for reigning. All 5 of those programs are sitting there. And presently, the most expensive one is just $49. And you have, it's, $49 and you have lifetime access to the content. So go and check that out. Of course, all of my books are on Amazon. And those of you that need counseling of any kind, BetterHelp is the counseling agency that we partner with. And if you use the link that's in our description, it will afford you 10% off of the counseling, and they in turn will deposit a referral fee into our ministry. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Okay, if you're anywhere around the Houston, Texas area, tomorrow at New Home Family Worship Center, Houston, at 4805 Shermire Road, we're going to give away water and gas cards. At the time of this filming of this, we've just come out of in 2021 the winter storm that just kind of ravaged Texas. And so as a ministry, we want to be a blessing. We're partnering with another ministry out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Pastor Shauna Timmons. They're coming with the water. Lisa was looking for water. It's been impossible to find water to even buy in Houston, or even in New Orleans. We tried to find water there, but we couldn't find any. There's a crisis. And as well, we're going to give away gas cards just to be a blessing, to whatever extent we can, just to be a blessing. And so if you're anywhere around the Houston, Texas area, and if you have need of any of this, tomorrow morning for 11 a.m., 4805 Shermire Road, you can meet us there, and we just want to be a blessing to you. We call it Operation We Serve. Yeah, Operation We Serve. We love being a blessing to our community in whatever way we possibly can. And so that's what we're doing tomorrow, Monday morning. So I love you all. I know I'm forgetting something. Don't forget to go by and, let me say this. If somebody's in the comments asking you to give towards an orphanage, that is a fraud. That's a con man. That's a con man. They some kind of way they got my image and even got my name, and it's like they're commenting. It's making it appear as though it's me asking you to support an orphanage. I don't have an orphanage. And anything I want you to give towards, I'm going to tell you personally. I'm not going to be in the comments prophesying, prophesying, and begging for money. I'm not going to be in the comments doing that. So if you see that happen tonight, or whenever you're watching this, report it and block that individual and know that that is not me. That is not me. That is a demon spirit. That's a con man, and I don't want you sending your money there. All right. I love you all. I want you to have a great one, and I'll talk to you real soon.